You'll think that getting to OC almost guarantees a spot into selective school later, right? Surprisingly, that's not the case. Every year, plenty of bright OC students get in, but there are still many who do miss out, while others who weren't in OC can make it still into top selective high schools. How does this happen? How can students who've already proven themselves in a competitive OC environment fall short when it comes to selective? My name is John, and I'm the founder of Bigs Academy. For the past 10 years, we've helped students get into selective high schools and reach their academic goals through online one-on-one tutoring. The answer isn't about ability, it's about mindset, preparation, and how the new selective exam format rewards a different kind of effort. One of the reasons that I often see is due to overconfidence, which in turn can also lead to a lack of effort. Students get into an opportunity class which is very highly competitive, and from a vacancy rate perspective, even more difficult to get in compared to a selective school on a whole. However, this does not necessarily translate very well and at all when it comes to writing. With the OC test not having writing section, and it's only worth 10% or 15% in previous years, students could get away with this when it comes to selective or spend less time preparing for it. In 2025 though, this is practically impossible now that it's worth 25%. It's too significant in terms of weighting for students to completely ignore, especially if they're planning to go for a fully selective high school or the top selective high schools in the entire state. This year, I spoke to several students in OC who, in their opinion, are much more smarter and brighter than some of their OC counterparts, but some of their counterparts made it in and they did not. This is partly due to neglect, in my opinion, towards the writing component and not spending enough time on it. This is not abnormal behavior. If you know you're already good in something and have already received recognition for it, this can in turn make you dedicate less time for it. Some OC students often skip writing practice entirely, thinking since they're already strong and smart and there's teachers at school are giving them great marks, they can spend less time on this subject compared to the other subjects that they already perform well in for OC. The way that I think about it is that writing is a skill that must be deliberately practiced like any other skill. And if you have seen my writing breakdowns, videos, I go through the little tricks and flags that they are really assessing in the selective exam. Previous test success in the OC and other exams does not translate to success in the selective or future exams. It's an indicator of success, but it's never a guarantee. This is especially the case when the selective test is such a high stakes examination and it's in a new format this year, with it being online. Students and parents should not be saying, hey, they do really well in the ASAT or STDC or tutoring test, but I was surprised about the results or outcome in the actual selective exam. These mock tests that are done elsewhere may not be very accurate, or the sample size is not large enough to accurately compare over a period of time. This also includes what we do for the Selective Horizon program at Bigs Academy. Although I think we are quite accurate compared to some of the online alternatives, the Department of Education has to be the gold standard. It is one of the reasons why I always tell our students the 2 selective past papers and the selective paper they have on the Department of Education website is very valuable and should be done closer to the exam in May rather than doing it so early on after the OC test, as they are honestly the best measure of a student's ability, whether or not they attend OC or if they're preparing for selective. Another reason why OC students can often not make it in is sometimes they just put unrealistic options. Many students that I've spoken to are basing it on the above average performance in the OC test 2 years ago, back when they did the test in year 4, as opposed to what year they're in at the moment, being year 6. They think that the selective exam would be easier given that there are more spots. And while this is true, and I do agree to a certain extent, students preparing for the OC test will benefit for selective preparation, as 3/4 of the exam are very similar in format, and this is referred to the reading, maths, and thinking skills components. The unrealistic options and choices do not align to the CSS framework of being consistent, smart, and strategic, which is often due to the peer comparison trap. If a student attends OC and underestimates the competition nationally, assuming that OC puts them ahead of everyone else doing the selective test, this can often lead to complacency. This is also for parents who have had students who do quite well in the OC, test with little to no preparation. They then start to do a little bit more than what they did for their OC preparation, assuming that this would translate to even better performance and results for selective, but they fail to take into consideration that selective is even more competitive than OC for certain high schools. For the students who do not make it into OC or who have disappointing results, they are going to be more driven and motivated to perform even better the second time around, being the selective test. As a result, putting in choices that are realistic, irrespective of whether you attend OC, is crucial, but I do find that many students neglect this. The number of students and parents I've spoken to in the last month in this exact situation is surprisingly higher than you may expect. One of the common factors is that nearly every parent and student who went to OC and didn't make it into selective, they only wait for fully selective high schools like Balcombe Hills, Sydney Boys, James Roos, which is obviously going to be very difficult to get into. Another reason why OC students may not make it in is because in the past, attending OC would actually help in the school mark component of the selective application. Now that there is no school mark component, 100% of the application is based on the outcome and performance of the exam itself in May. There is no specific benefit besides learning at a faster pace with the gifted students in your class, as well as 3/4 of the exam format being the same when it comes to OC and selective. This is compared to just a few years ago, where as part of the assessment policy, there was a school mark component provided for reading and maths. So now that this has been adjusted, parents who have older siblings who had this apply can no longer rely or continue to rely on previous assessment or school success of what they do. They have to perform well in the actual selective exam in May, as it's worth 100%. But don't get me wrong, students who have made it into OC have strong potential and are often extremely bright and gifted. But the difference lies in effort alignment with exam requirements, not more academic ability. That is why in terms of support, they should still work just as hard as other students who aren't in OC, and if anything, take advantage of the resources that are now at their disposal since they attend an OC school. Parents and students should help guide them. If you're noticing a child is slacking off in preparation, or in some instances, completely neglecting certain subjects when it comes to selective preparation, that is a sign to ensure that they don't become overconfident or complacent, especially if they want to get into selective. If they already have a top private school or a very good local school and you have no intentions for selective, then that's a very different story. As often there's going to be little to no preparation or required because there's no assessment besides local catchment schools that do not even require any exam at all. Overall, students who have attended OC are definitely bright, and the majority do make it into the top selective high schools. There are still, however, a good minority who do not make it in, despite having a higher likelihood of getting to selective compared to OC when it comes to vacancy rates. I've gone through the 3 main reasons already, but if there's something I missed in this video that I haven't discussed, please put it down in the comments below. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, as I'm trying to be as active and helpful as possible. And if there's a topic that I haven't covered before, please put it down and I'll try my best to assist. Otherwise, I can respond to your comment as well. I read every comment here. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.